So yeah, I want to start with like a really fun question, and I got asked it the other day, and I thought it really tells a lot about a person. So I want to ask you, if you were to wake up tomorrow and there was absolutely not one other human on the earth, what's the first thing you'd do?
Oh boy. I would run around naked and free. I would run around naked and just like sing hallelujah all day.
Amazing. I said, that's so strange. I said, I mean, the exact same thing, because I said, you know, I mean, what's your reason for that? Just because, then I got asked, the person who asked me said, but why don't you do that anyway? And I was kind of like, well, people would think I'm strange, like it wouldn't be accepted. But I think,
well, I mean, for me, I think it's two things. One, I think it's just like my own personal hang-ups, you know, I think most women do, you know, have about their bodies, but also it's just about freedom, you know, the freedom to express myself, you know, in the simplest, most natural way. And I think, you know, in this day and age, we've become so, you know, like, you know, body shaming and everything else that goes on, is that we've become so self-conscious, and that there's so much criticism, that that's something that I think as people, and particularly for us, I think as women, that we really don't get the opportunity to do. So for me, I think that's like one of my ultimate freedoms.
Amazing. I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I want to talk about comfort zones. We all know comfort zones, and I think as an entrepreneur, we've learned that most amazing, magical things are just outside of your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. So I think you really stepped out of your comfort zone by taking your business, the Fashion Deli, from Cape Town all the way to New York, to the big city. I just want to know, what was your biggest fear in doing that? What did you fear most?
Failure is, you know, was my biggest fear, but I've learned to overcome that. And I think my experience in Cape Town, you know, can be interpreted as failure in a way, in the sense that the store didn't work out the way that I had wanted it to. However, you know, the greatest thing that came out of that was that, you know, I had so many international people, you know, who came into the store, and these are people at the highest level. You know, I had like one of the heads of FC UK, for example, you know, who came into the store, and they were like, gosh, this is so amazing. And, you know, we got a lot of international media, you know, from the New York Times and, you know, other international, you know, magazines. So that for me, you know, gave me the confidence and made me realize that there was definitely something there, despite the fact that, you know, from a financial perspective, that the business did not necessarily work in Cape Town. And I just felt there was something in my gut, you know, that told me that, you know, and having lived in New York for, you know, I studied here, I'd lived here before, that I knew in my gut that this was the place where I felt that this could definitely work. And, you know, and it's been a challenge, you know, over the past 2.5 years, you know, in terms of really even getting to this point, you know. But certainly, like I said, I was afraid of failing. But, you know, every day I wake up and I sort of walk through, you know, my fears, and I realize that fear is just it's not real, you know. It's all in our heads, and I think challenges will exist, and I think if you understand and you accept that, and it's really about problem solving, that when you do encounter challenges, is that you problem solve, and you talk to people, and you figure it, you know, and you figure it out, and you don't give up, and you just persevere and just keep at it.
Yeah, I think all great things come with their challenges, so
yes,
start making the move, and I think they only challenges are how you learn. That's how you learn and grow. I think Felicia's with us now.
Hi, Felecia.
Hey, everyone. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Okay, Felecia, she's from Feverish ice cream in Miami in the United States.
Wonderful.
We were discussing a really fun question, which I think I'd love to hear your answer to. I was saying to Thulare that if you were to wake up tomorrow and there was not a single person on the earth, What's the first thing you do?
Oh, wow. Probably go skinny dipping. I don't know. I would do one of the first things on my bucket list that I'm probably really afraid to do, and that would probably be one of the top things.
I had a similar answer.
Be like, wait, what? Like, I can just run around naked? Yeah, sure.
It's so funny. That's great. Felicia, and then we were just talking about comfort zones. I know before starting Feverish, you were working, I think, marketing at a tech company.
Correct.
You really went kind of out of your comfort zone to start something completely new. What was the thing that people did to kind of discourage from doing that?
I'm sorry, you said what was the thing that got me out of my comfort zone?
What was the one thing, when you made the transition from your corporate job to starting your Feverish ice cream business, what was the one thing that people said to you just to discourage you from making that bold move?
Oh, wow. I mean, there was so much that people said, you know. When I first was toying with the idea, I was actually working for the NBA at the time. I was the front office marketing manager for their WNBA team in Minnesota. And that was when I first had that idea. First of all, I was in Minnesota. I'm a Florida girl. If you know anything about Minnesota, you know, there are, during the winter, it gets negative 10, 20,
Right.
you know, negative 30-degree wind chill. Insane, right? So, so I would constantly tell people, I'm quitting this job, I'm leaving this job, I'm moving back to Florida, and I'm going to start this ice cream company. And people would look at me like I was crazy because, first of all, it's the NBA, right? So everyone holds it on this really high pedestal.
High regard.
Right.
And, you know, the perks were great, but the job wasn't for me. And, you know, when I get very honest about my experience, I'm like, the job was literally making me sick. Because, you know, every morning I woke up and I'm just like, you know what, this is not where I'm supposed to be. This is not where my full potential is, you know, being used. You know, this is not what's making my heart sing. So, but yeah, I mean, that was the beginning of it. You know, people were just like, oh, what the hell? What are you talking about, Felecia? Like, why would you leave this job? And then, you know, the job that I had right before I actually started Feverish, I probably would have never left that job. So I didn't talk about Feverish as much because I love the job. And if it wasn't because of the economy tanking in 2008 and actually losing the job, that was really the push to say, Felecia, you've been sitting on this idea for 2 years. You have to do something. So when I started it, you know, I pulled up to my parents' backyard with you know, 2 ice cream carts that I bought off Craigslist, like really crappy carts, and they just kind of looked at me like, you know, they're supportive. My parents have always been supportive, but they had that look in their eye like, what the hell is our daughter doing? And people just did not understand it. You know, they didn't understand it. It was forward thinking at the time. You know, now we have the gourmet food trucks, so people get it. But before, when you're talking about, hey, we're going to have these carts, we're going to have these trucks, and in order to find us, you're going to have to follow us on Twitter. Like, people could not put those two things together 6 years ago. So lots of naysayers.
Wow.
Okay, thanks. I got to where they are. Felecia, I know you also said somewhere in one of your stories, you said you beat the odds as a C student.
Yeah.
Did you ever fear being average, and what does average mean to you?
Well, so average is funny, right? Because I was a C student that ended up winning $120,000 in scholarships. Like, my GPA never got anywhere near a 3.0 by the time I graduated high school. And it, you know, when you talk about situations like that, which I work with a lot of youth, so I still see that going on, where because they don't look good on you know, their GPA, or they don't necessarily look good on a piece of paper, people kind of beat the life out of kids and beat the life out of adults and tell them that you will not amount to anything because you didn't follow this straight line that society tells you to follow. And it's unfortunate because we all know, you know, everyone on this call knows that there's not one road to success. There's multiple roads, right? There's hills, there's freaking volcanoes, there's all of it. And it's okay if you make a mistake, you just pick yourself up. And then on the flip side of that is also learning how to showcase your talents And that's what I learned through that process, right? My grades sucked, but that doesn't mean that I wasn't a bad person, that I was very involved in the community. I was in every club you could possibly think of. I was a captain of my basketball team. I volunteered a lot, and I loved to write. And once I realized that, hey, Felecia, you got all these things going. Why are you playing small? You know, why do you feel like they won't be impressed? Why do you think that they won't say, hey, you know, this is a way for you to start over in college and also pay you to do those things? And that for me was the biggest lesson that I've learned in my entire life, you know, at 17. I'm 32 now, you know, and that is something that has stayed with me. Like, one, always question everything, right? Question the limitations society is putting on you. But then two, always understand that there are multiple roads to get to wherever you want to get to.
Right.
And then, like the question before, you know, don't listen to the naysayers. I'm also a new mom, so my daughter's in the back. So if you hear her,
oh,
that's
she's
who's
cute.
back there. She wants to be on the interview, so I apologize for any you can hear her in the background.
It's part of your life.
Yeah.
I think the thing about not being like the typical academic student, if you look at most of the biggest legends like Steve Jobs and Richard Branson, I don't even think they finished school, so there's something to say about that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Richard Branson, who never even finished high school, you know.
Right, and there's so many people like that, you know, that, you know, it's one of those things that even when we talk about people not finishing high school, not finishing college, or not going to school at all, that doesn't mean that they stopped learning. You know, they just did not go to traditional school. They did not go the traditional route. But I guarantee any of those people that we just rattled off probably read more than anyone, are probably some of the most resourceful people in the world. And that's why they are successful, because they've turned life into their classroom, essentially. And that's how we have to look at it.
Thinkers, yes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. And Felecia, I know you help other young people with building their personal brands, am I right?
Say that one more time.
You help other young people develop their personal brands.
Yeah, I do. So my the second book that I've wrote was How to Start a Business on a Ramen Noodle Budget. And that is all about
that is so great.
You know, I love funny titles. So they get people excited, right? But then there's that connection. So you know, what I learned from my first book and going through that process as a C student was I had to brand myself. And creating a personal brand is so important. Plus, it's so much cheaper to do it now than, you know, 5-10 years ago, because we have all the technological tools in order to make that happen. Everyone is their own brand. Everyone is can be their own TV personality, radio personality. Right, absolutely. So, yeah, through the book and through an online course that I have, I do teach people essentially how to create their own personal brand, how to become sticky with the media and get them really excited about what you're doing, and then most importantly, like how to craft your story, because it's really all about crafting the story, being very honest, being very vulnerable with people so that they have a connection to you, and that helps to start building your tribe.
Even a brand, I think every brand should have a story. I've always said about my product, I own a company making bamboo watches, and it's so easy to make a product. It's very difficult to create that brand that people know and trust. So I think it's so important. And Thulare, I know you have quite a strong personal brand. What kind of opportunities do you think your name has unlocked for you?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Sorry. I said you have quite a strong personal brand, so I was wondering what opportunities have been unlocked for you with your name and your brand, your personal brand.
Oh, you know, I think it's, especially now, like working on the, you know, and opening the Fashion Deli, you know, concept store, I recognize how important that has become, I think, in terms of people, one, taking me seriously, you know, and recognizing that I have, you know, that I have something, that I didn't just, you know, wake up one day and, you know, decide to, you know, open this concept store. So, and in all honesty, you know, I think I hadn't necessarily like was very strategic about that. It just sort of happened. But now when I look at my, when I look at my press book and I look at my portfolio, I can look back and say, oh wow, I've actually achieved something. And I think it re-encourages me and it reaffirms me every day that, I've been able to get this far, and I believe, that I know I have what it takes to take it to the next level, So it's been really helpful in that respect. Like I said, it's enabled me to have and get meetings with people who otherwise would, never consider, meeting me. They look through my stuff and they're like, oh, wow, she's done X, Y, Z, and she has that, so it's been really helpful in that, in that respect.
Fantastic. I always like to say, what's that saying I love? You are a unique event, or one-off event. I always like to say it. No one can copy you. It's like you have this one chance to make like one impression. So
absolutely. And I think, like Felicia was saying, I think, when we're talking about, naysayers, it's also just about really standing in your own truth. Because I think very often, I have a situation, where I've had, friends who are like, oh, this is like, because they really don't understand, what it is that I was doing, and that, this project just seemed like it was, a little too, too big, for lack of a better, word. But I think it's also just about really listening to your own gut. Like if you are really in touch with yourself and because I know in my heart, in my soul, in my gut that this is going to be a really amazing, and that's something that's very difficult to convey, to other people, because they have no concept, whatsoever. And for the most part, they're people who've never really, tried to do anything, in terms of like starting a business. And so it's very difficult for a lot of people to really understand. I'm sorry?
Not only convey your gut, is it important to convey your gut, but like I think it's so important as an entrepreneur to be able to identify with that gut feeling and kind of act on it.
Absolutely. For me, that has become my guiding light, is how I determine, who I work with, the things that I do or don't do. And it has never, once I started trusting my gut is when and it's never disappointed me. I think when I was a lot younger, I used to doubt myself, a lot, and that's when I used to get myself into a lot of trouble. Whereas now I always like tune in, and it's always proven to be a solid way of navigating, my way through, through life now.
I want to talk about something a little bit more real and current. I don't think, as leading voices, I don't think we can be oblivious to the kind of social crises that's happening around the world. I mean, this past week it was the xenophobic attacks in South Africa, and if it's not the xenophobia, it's Boko Haram in Nigeria, and if it's not that, it's the cops shooting, the white cops shooting black people in St. Louis. So, Thulare, South Africa is your native country.
Mm-hmm.
What do you kind of think of all these xenophobic attacks that have been going on?
It's very disappointing to me, and I've been reading a lot of, I think on both sides of the debate, in terms of, trying to get an understanding as to why these, xenophobic attacks are happening. And it really points to, I think, a lot of social and structural issues and challenges, that exist, and primarily, from an economic point of view, is that you have people, I think, at the bottom of the economic, strata or ladder, so to speak, who are fighting, for lack of a better word, for very scarce resources. And so, you have people who've come, to South Africa, from other parts of the continent, who came seeking a better life because they, they escaped whatever challenges that they were, social, political, economic challenges that they were faced with. And then, of course you have South Africa, native South Africans who, we have our own historical, baggage from apartheid. And so when you have these individuals, who are, like I said, are really scrambling, or jostling for really scarce resources, I think that in itself creates, the kind of situation that we have seen, those xenophobic attacks, which is very saddening. And I think it says a lot about, from a macroeconomic point of view, and I think in terms of from a governmental point of view, it points to the fact that, there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of uplifting, people's social, economic, conditions, and that's something that needs to be addressed, because that's clearly, it's a symptom of a much bigger social and economic problem that exists.
Yeah, I think it comes down to just that lack of jobs and people's mindsets. And I think as voices and entrepreneurs, we need to find real solutions to inform these people of an entrepreneurial mindset and how they can take hold of the opportunity.
I think, as you rightly articulated, I think it's people like us, I think entrepreneurs, who are then, I think, are the bridge between, I think, what government can or cannot do. I think for us as entrepreneurs, that we have an opportunity to make a difference by creating, businesses or growing businesses that then employ, people living wages. And it's not exploitive businesses, but businesses that really, are able to provide, people with living wages. And I think that's where, for me, I think entrepreneurship really plays such a critical role, I think, in addressing some of these social ills.
Thank you. I think I can 100% second that. We have such a big role to play.
Yep.
What is weakness to you, and have you ever felt a moment of feeling weak?
All the time.
Give me an example of where you felt that way, or where maybe someone made you feel that way, or someone told you to quit. How did you feel?
I think once again, it all boils down to, I think, us as our own interpretations of things that happen, in our lives. And I can certainly say that for myself, because I think, when I analyze situations, afterwards, I realized that, perhaps it had more to do with what I perceived a situation or an event to be, rather than what it actually was. And that applies to weakness, too. Because sometimes I have preconceived ideas about, something, and then I go into either a meeting or a negotiation, and I'm feeling really down on myself, or I perceive this other entity or this other person to be better than or more than or whatever. So I come in with from a point of weakness, so to speak. But yeah, I feel weak all the time. It's something that I struggle, with. But I think now, I think in terms of becoming more self-aware, I'm more cognizant, of it now. And I, now I do my affirmations and I affirm myself, but that's not always, it doesn't always work all the time, but I'm a lot better at it. Now.
But we are guilty of kind of overthinking things and having these preconceived ideas. And I think what I've come to learn from my experience is just those people are feeling exactly the same way. And
absolutely.
I think, I don't know, as a young female, sometimes, I don't know if you think you have the same thing, but going into a meeting with kind of an older male in a suit, it is a little bit intimidating. But like you said, it comes with getting to know yourself and those affirmations before those meetings and just really having that extra level of confidence.
And I can say also that, for me, there's some interesting cultural differences in the sense that, you know, like New Yorkers are like really like hardcore, you know, they like just get straight to the point, and it's like, you know, it's intense. And so with my cultural background, like coming from South Africa, you know, we have a certain way in which we, you know, like pleasantries in terms of how we, you know, communicate. And so I always, you know, very often I always feel like kind of like a little overwhelmed by how harsh, you know, like New Yorkers are and can be, you know. And so sometimes I think in terms of like a sense of weakness, like when you go into these meetings and it's like all these suits and people are like hardcore and it's like, you know, get straight to the point, you know, whereas I'm like, oh, yes, ma'am, and yes, sir, you know, and it's like all these pleasantries. So sometimes like kind of, you know, navigating my way around that, you know, is can be a challenge sometimes, because you don't even know or realize that this is like stuff that's so ingrained, you know, in how you've been socialized, and then you find yourself in this environment that is like operates at like, you know, 100 kilometers an hour, and you've got to be like on your toes and, you know, and be like aggressive, and I'm not that way like naturally, so it's something, so like I said, sometimes in terms of like feeling a sense of weakness, that sometimes very often like where I always feel like you know, but you learn because,
I promise.
sorry?
I said deep breaths help to calm you in a situation like that.
Yeah. And then you like, you know, like you said earlier, then it's just really a matter of just like calming yourself down and say, okay, you know, it's all fine. And I think you can always turn a negative into a positive. And I think it's just also just really beginning to understand what your strengths are, even if you feel like this may appear like it's strength, but sometimes, you know, like a less aggressive approach is actually a stronger approach than, you know, like this sort of aggressive, you know, take everybody down kind of attitude.
Okay, thank you. I love chatting because we all have similar challenges and experiences. Felecia, I wanted to ask you, have you ever been told to quit? Has anyone ever said to you quit, and explain that feeling, how you felt that moment?
You said, have I ever thought about quitting?
Has anyone ever told to quit? Or have you ever thought about quitting, for that matter?
Oh my gosh, have I thought about quitting? 1,000,000 times.
And what kept you going? What made you?
You know, it's a few things. So you know, it's really hard to be an entrepreneur. It's really hard to do your own thing. You know, I would never like to paint that picture of telling people that it's easy. And the biggest thing that makes it hard is that you're literally going against everything, right? You're going against 12 years of education in, you know, formal school that is really just training you to be an employee, you know? So when you step out on your own, not only do you have to kind of re-educate yourself before you can move forward, it's a whole mindset thing, right? Like, this is something that's definitely viable. You know, you're in charge of your own destiny. Like, you got to eat what you kill, right? Essentially, as an entrepreneur. So, you know, those things are hard, and I think those things constantly go around in our head. And the biggest, I think, two things that really always stand out is, you know, what the hell am I doing? Do I know what I'm doing? Because a lot of times we're just kind of building the ship as we are sailing.
Yes.
And then the other part is, even though you have the credentials and even though you've accomplished so many things, sometimes you still feel like a fraud, right? Like, because you are building the ship as you go along. And you know, I tell people that, and they're like, what do you mean? You've been honored by the White House twice, you've did this and this and that. But I'm like, every day I wake up and I still have to prove myself as an entrepreneur. And I also have to shut down the biggest critic, which is the one in my head. And being the perfectionist that I am, and that most entrepreneurs are, you always want things to be perfect. And not understanding that, you know, what's perfect to you until you send out that email or send out that proposal is more than likely fine enough to get the job done, because entrepreneurs are overachievers just by default, right? So
that so true.
That critic is loud, and you know, and the critic is very loud. And I've thought about quitting plenty of times. Like, I mean, probably last week I thought about quitting because it can be very hard.
The fact that we so hard on ourselves, that's what makes us entrepreneurs. I think. I think that's
so true.
but we get up and we keep going. We get up and keep going, and that makes all the difference, you know.
Yeah.
Every time you think like that, and then I've had some very like dark days, especially in the beginning. You know, I almost closed shop twice because I lost a big client, didn't know how I was going to make payroll. You know, like our incomplete inventory in our freezer. One of our employees left the freezer open, and we lost all of our inventory. Didn't find out until you know an hour before the store is supposed to open. So it's like, what do? Those are the days when you just like you want to just throw up the peace sign and say, you know what? It's so much easier for me to go work for someone else. I'm going to be using less brain cells. You know, I won't be responsible for this.
But you overcome it and you keep. That's what makes you so great. As an entrepreneur.
It's the picking yourself back up. It's the positive affirmations. It's the life hacks that you have to do. You know, like I have pop-ups that come up, messages that come up on my phone throughout the day saying, Felecia, you know, you got this, just keep going, follow your most epic dream, do epic shit. Like all that stuff I tell other people, that's the stuff I keep in my phone that pops up because it just happens to pop up every day at the right time when I just need that little dose to keep going.
Absolutely.
Thulare, I want to ask you this. If you had to say to be a woman is to be, how would you end that sentence?
To be a woman is to be a multitasker. Yeah, I feel like, you know, on any given day, it's like I'm juggling, you know, so many different things. You know, I think, you know, from an entrepreneurial point of view, you know, as a businesswoman, you know, trying to do something that's new and different and unique, you know, in a market, you know, and something that's never really been done before. And then also, you know, there's just being a woman, I think in terms of, you know, we're generally just really hard on ourselves, I think in terms of, you know, how we feel we need to look and be and behave, you know, although I don't, you know, in my head, I think I don't necessarily believe that I, you know, subscribe to that. However, somewhere in the recesses of my mind, I sort of kind of do, you know? So, but yeah, it's really about multitasking and just, you know, just staying on course. Yes, and exactly. Right.
And Felecia, if you had to write a letter to an 18-year-old girl who was just, you know, becoming a woman, entering that next step in her life, how would you start the letter? Dear woman or dear girl?
Oh, dear young fabulous woman, do not waste your genius at 18 by thinking that you are small and you're insignificant and that you can't rule the world at 18, because you absolutely can. And you may not even realize the true power that you have until you are, you know, 10 years older than what you are right now. But just, you know, stand in your truth, like we've been talking through this entire session, and just own your power, man. You at 18, you can literally do anything because you do not have the responsibilities. You're not like me right now trying to juggle a Google Hangout and drop my daughter off and head to a meeting. Because that's what we do when we get older.
You're multitasking.
Absolutely. And doing it fabulously, right?
Right.
But at 18, man, you just got to be epic. At 18, you absolutely have to be epic, and there's literally nothing standing in your way.
The sky's the limit at that age.
Absolutely. The sky is absolutely the limit.
Okay, just to sum things up, I mean, you both, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experience and your loveliness and your journey. It's really inspiring. And I think
for inviting us.
Thulare, you said just so that it's the first time that you're doing this. You've all kind of been the first movers. You pioneered these incredible initiatives and organizations. What kind of characteristics or what separates you apart from other women for being the first movers in the industry? And you presented with the same opportunity. What is it about you that makes you so different and amazing?
You know, it's really my passion. You know, in all honesty, that's like my driving force. That's what makes me, you know, when the days are dark and nothing seems to work and everybody tells me this is like really stupid, why are you putting yourself through this, you know, when you've got a great education, you could have a job, you know, and earn all this money, you know. And it's just, I'm really passionate about this, you know, and I often really think you know, to myself, because, you know, sometimes I'm like, I don't know where it comes from. It comes from like the ether, the universe. There's like this energy and this force that really pushes me. And even sometimes when I've even thought about quitting, you know, there's like this fire that burns inside of me that's like, you know, we cannot quit this. This is your passion. This is your dream. This is why you're here. So for me, it's really I'm really passionate about this, and this is what really, it's the fuel that kind of makes me get up every day and, you know, do what I do.
Yeah, just speaking to you, you can hear how passionate you are, and that's what made me want to be a part of what you're doing and get involved. So.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to.
It's so sad. And Felicia, what is
Yeah,
it about you?
I definitely, I have to agree. Passion, absolutely. You know, that's what gets me up every single morning, wanting to just like kill it every single day. But not just for me, but for my community and also for my family.
Right.
You know, one of the biggest things for me about being an entrepreneur and leaving corporate America is that I couldn't do the work in the community that I wanted to do because I just didn't have the time to do it. Nor was the work that I was passionate about a big priority for the corporations that I worked for. So for me, having that flexibility and that freedom to have a company that contributes back to our direct community in so many different ways, from our technology programs, heck, for just being able to give out free popsicles whenever I want, and putting a smile on someone's face. For me, that's what keeps me going, and you know, knowing that I'm on a mission to just leave the world a better place than I found it. I'm sorry, not just for my kids, but then for other people's kids and other people's families as well.
That's great.
Okay, thank you. You'll be remembered as the popsicle queen.
Yeah.
That's really important, especially in the summertime.
Oh, yes. You see, it's like 90 degrees in Florida right now. So, and this is like, what, spring, winter? I don't know.
Yeah, it's spring in New York.
Thank you so much for joining us. Lisa, I know it was a little bit later for you than you expected. So thank you so much. And thank you, Thulare, for your time. It was lovely, lovely chatting to you.